Hi everyone, it's Mo Jax and I'm in the lab today looking at the Rane 64. I've already looked at the Pioneer DJM 900 SRT, so it's only right that I take a look at this one, which is like its companion in the Serato DJ lineup. It's the refinement of the Rane 68, which has been around for a little while, and the idea is that this is totally integrated, totally native with the new Serato DJ software. So I've got Serato DJ 1.5.2 running on two different laptops, because the key to this mixer, one of the big things with this, like the 62 and the 68, is it's got two USB ports on there. So you can connect up two computers at once, you can switch between DJs easily, and there's a lot of extra functionality afforded with effects and stuff like that as well with those two USB ports. So there's a lot to look at here. It's a very nicely made mixer indeed. It feels like a tank. It's very industrial looking compared to the Pioneer. You know, the Pioneer's got that kind of refined, kind of Japanese look about it. This is very much an American muscle car of a mixer, and that's cool. If that's your vibe, then you're just gonna dig this absolutely. It feels really, really solid all round. It's got a really solid metal build everywhere. The whole thing just feels reassuring and tough, like it's not going to let you down. You know, it really does. The only slight thing I sort of don't quite like about the build is it's got plastic pots on there, which have got like a little bit of a wobble to them. And I did hit up Rane about that and say, well, why have you put plastic pots on this mixer? It's a £2 mixer. And they said, actually, it's, you know, they were the best choice for the product itself. Their anti-static properties and so on are really important. So, you know, they know more about engineering than I do. So I'm not going to argue the point. I wish they felt a little bit more solid, but other than that, everything about the mixer just screams abuse me. You know, it's really going to last you. You put it into an install or something like that, you take it out on the road, use it hard, it's going to last. So nothing to fault from that point of view. So what I'm going to do the usual thing. I'm going to take you on a tour around it. We won't go too much into the Serato DJ DVS stuff because I've kind of done that already with the Pioneer. We'll look at what sets this mixer apart from the Pioneer and how it integrates with the software, which it does integrate very, very tightly with Serato DJ. So let's go. Let's take a look around it. Okay, so we start naturally at the top of the mixer. We've got the switches at the top for each channel. Now, one of the big selling points for this mixer, especially over the Pioneer, is the fact it's got two USB inputs, which means you can run two separate computers in there. I've got the MacBook Pro and I've got an old white MacBook hooked in there at the moment. You can use that to switch between DJs at a venue, at a gig, or alternatively you can use it for some very clever effects routing and so on as well. And I'll get into that a bit later on, but that's a big old feature. So what that means is on each one you've got USB-A, you've got the through signal, so it's phono or line. Each of these four down here are switchable between phono and line. You've got the aux input, which is a single aux input that can be applied to any of the channels. You can just sort of map that wherever you want. And then you've got USB-B, which is for the second computer as well. So I'm going to go back to USB-A on there. And underneath each one, you've got this control light there. And that means that what you can do is at the moment, all these controls for the decks on each side are controlling deck 1. Now, if we hit that switch on the top there, they're now controlling deck 3, and you can see that's lit up there, and you can see what's going on. So all easily done from the mixer. You can see exactly what's going on and where you're at with the mixer in relation to the hardware. No problem at all. Going down from there, we've got VU meters on each channel. We have a level, so a gain control on each channel. You've got high, mid and low EQs. They are full kill up to plus 6 dB. You've got a filter, combo filter, high and low pass, and that can be adjusted. You've got resonance you can adjust in the software itself. You've got crossfader assign, A, B or through for each one. Flex effects, individually assignable or in combination. You can send those to the effects, each channel. Q, again, you're not restricted to one at a time. You can do multiples at once. And following on from that, we've got a split Q, and you've also got the blend between the Q and the main, and you've got headphone level. Got a large jack on top, small jack and large jack on the front. So in terms of queuing, there's nothing more you can ask for. That is fully comprehensive. That's all anyone could ever need. You've got nice up faders, nice sort of fairly easy to push, nice sort of loose feeling up faders. You've got the crossfader, which is Rane's legendary magnetic crossfader. Feels amazing. The cut-in is super tight. It's great. You've got contour controls for each of those as well. So up faders you can contour, and the crossfader. It really is an awesome fader. You can see why people rave about Rane crossfaders. Simple as that. You've got on the outputs itself, you've got the main outputs are on XLRs. that's level control there. Non-program MIDI, we'll get into that in a bit. Balance left and right. You've got a booth output on balanced jacks. You've got a session out and in, and that's what I'm going out of there to feed my recording out. So you can run a full clean feed in and out of the mixer quite simply. Then up in the top left hand corner here, we've got the mic inputs. Now the mic input 1 is regular mic input. It's got phantom power switchable as well, so if you're using this in a studio environment, you can switch to a condenser mic and something like that and plug that in without any external power required. The bottom one is switchable between mic and line level input, so if you've got like a guitar level input, something like that, you can run in there as well. Each one's got a level control, pan control left and right, and tone control to go from sort of low to high tone. And again, they're assignable to the flex effects. Now, one thing you can do is actually assign those, right, if you don't use mics in your setup, in your set, then what you can do is actually assign those quite easily to be just extra controls in the software. So they're mappable controls, so you can use these for the DJ effects or something like that in the software, whatever you want to map them to, or to video controls in Serato Video. So that's really, really cool that you can just, and that then will have no effect on the mic at all. They're just being used as control. So that's really handy for you. So it's time then to fire up a computer or two, and we'll take a look at how this lot on the sides interacts with the software. Okay, so I'm running Serato DJ 1.5.2 over here, which is the latest version that's out at the moment. Now, we've got 4 decks have appeared here. What happens is when you actually load up the software and you plug in this mixer for the first time, as it did with the Pioneer, it installs the driver. It says, oh, I've detected a Rane 64, I need to install the driver. It then does that for you without any problem at all. It must be included in the Serato DJ download, I guess, because that just works without any internet connection or anything. It just loaded straight away, no hassle. So that was really nice to see. Did have to reboot afterwards because it's installing drivers, but beyond that, once you've done that, it just works no problem at all. So let's just get something running and I can show you how this lot all works with it. So I've got a track loaded there now, or in fact what I'll do, I'll just show you how to load a track first of all. With this top button here, you've got a tab to go between your different crates and so on, and then we can scroll and then you load using the button there. So let's just get that going. I've got the DVS running, and again, just to show you if you didn't see it before, we've got all the scopes and everything all running there. And my scopes are looking very nice and clean today because I've got some brand new Autophon MF7 needles, which I'll be taking a look at some point soon. So I'm in relative mode, I've got absolute mode and internal mode to work with as well. But right now I'm rolling in relative mode. So these on the side then, so we've gone through the browsing and the loading. We've got the loop, we can change the loop length on there. And if you push it down, it changes the loop length and halves it down basically as well. So look, we've got a 4-beat loop, we can just hit loop, and that's now dropped into a 4-beat loop quite happily. And we can shorten that, and we can shorten it by pushing down as well, which is quite a nice way of working. Take that out of the loop, just hit the loop again. You've got loop roll, which does the same thing again, so I'm just going to go to slightly longer. There we go, and then slip mode, we can turn slip mode on and off. You should know what slip mode is by now, same as flux mode in Traktor, basically lets you manipulate the record without losing your place in the track, so that's great. I'm starting to get a feel for that actually. The more these videos go on, the more eventually I'll be crazy for slip mode. So there we go, and we go back then to loop. Turn slip mode off quite happily. Right, there we go. You have got under there the dreaded sync button. It won't work unless you load another track, so I'll go onto the other side and just load another track up over there, and now that'll let me hit sync, and I've got sync activated on both decks. And all that does, it's a very simple sync basically. It just allows you to, it locks in the tempo one time and one time only. It doesn't lock on after that, it just literally sets the tempo to the right BPM. You've then got to still mix manually yourself, but that's now in sync. To take it out of sync, you just go on the shift button, which is quite an important button down here on the mixer. Hold that down, shift, hit it again, and it'll totally reset it to where it was in the first place. And then down there, this is where we get a little bit more complicated. One thing with this mixer, right, there's a lot to look at on this mixer, there's a lot to understand. You are going to want to read this. Okay, this is I think it's 40-page manual that comes with this mixer, and none of that is wasted, apart from the blank couple of pages at the end. But there's so much information in here. It's really well written. You know, fair play to Rane. This is a well-made clear and concise manual for this. It's online as well. If you're thinking of buying one, get online, download it, read it. Okay, because you're going to miss out on so much of this mixer. Even if you're going to come across one in a club, if you hear that a club you're going to play in has got one of these, get that manual, get to know it, because there's so much in here. I've been playing with this for like 2 days. There's still stuff I can't remember how to do. So once you've mastered it, boy, you're going to be on it. But until that time, you're going to need to refer to that manual. So make sure you have a good read of it. Shift function then, yeah, over there. Banks. So what we've got is basically 4 buttons there. They're different layers. So what we've got is these cue points first of all. So it's set hot cues on the move. Wish they had quantizing, you know, snap in Serato, but there you go. And change bank just puts us onto loops then. So the first layer that we've got there is loops and cues. So you've got cues on the first bank, 4 cues. Second one is loops. So if you've got saved loops, you can activate 4 saved loops from there. For a lot of people, that's going to be all you're ever going to need in terms of queuing and looping, but there's more to be had yet. So then we get into layer 2, which is samples. So we go to, click on there, hit layer 2. There we go, and now we're in SP6 mode. I don't think I've got any loaded in there. No, I haven't, but there you go. So that will now do your first 4 slots of your SP6 sampler quite happily. So let's take that off, go back to view. What I'm going to do is just going to hide away these 2 decks, actually, give me a bit more space. There we are. And then layer 3 and 4 are user assignable. You can actually map these to whatever you want. And out of the box, they are assigned. So layer 3 is actually 4 cue points on bank 1 and 4 cue points on bank 2. So I can actually have all 8 cue points from layer 3 quite happily, which is good. Because I don't really use save loops very much, but I do use a lot of cue points. So for me, that would be the one to use. I'll just use layer 3, and I've got all 8 cue points ready to go. You can assign the 4th bank to whatever you want, or whatever, you know, the options are there. You've got 2 layers completely free to do what you want with them. So that's great from that point of view. So you can see, you know, most of the stuff you're ever going to want to do with the software, you can do from the mixer without any hassle at all. The one thing I kind of wish you could do by default is sort of switch between relative and internal mode for those times when you need to get into internal mode. You know, sometimes you just do, unfortunately. But in this case, you know, you can always remap that to one of these buttons on one of the extra layers. So yeah, pretty straightforward from that point of view. So that's how it interacts with one computer. Let's get a second one into the mix and let's see how we are going to get on with that. So I'm going to load up, I'm going to plug in now. This is coming from USB-B into this white MacBook, and that is going to connect up. There it goes. And what you can see on this screen, this is the screen of the white MacBook. You can see this has actually got now in use on both those decks. So I'm just going to go, as you can see, we've got all 4 there still, and it says all 4 are in use. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share a couple of decks with this computer. So I want to share, let's say, 3 and 4 with this computer. So I've got my central 2, I'm working on this one here, and I want to run, you can do any combination you like, but I'm going to switch over. So now I've got number 3 and number 4 are enabled for this computer here. So I'm going to switch the control layer from there, so we can see that's now controlling that one on that side, and I'm going to go through, I'm now scrolling through on my second computer, and I'm going to load the track to deck 3, and boom, there you go. Talk about straightforward. I think that is absolutely amazing. To be honest, I've never used one of the Rane mixers with the 2 USBs before. This is the first time I've used it. I'm amazed at how straightforward that is to do. It really is rather cool. Now, obviously, the only problem with that is at the moment I've only got 2 turntables hooked up here. So the only way I can do anything with this one is to use internal, and that's no good. So what I would probably want to do when I'm changing over, if I've only got 2 decks, what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to turn that one back over to through, I'm going to turn that one back over to through, and what I would do on the first computer, computer A, I'm just going to get rid of that. So I'm going to switch over to deck B, or deck 2 rather. So now I've got control over deck 2, and I'm going to load that track on my computer and get it into relative mode. And there you go. And so now that's now coming from computer B. It's complicated. It's one of those things when you first play with it, it's kind of complicated to get your head around, but once you have, it's just working. So now I've got this deck controlling that computer, this deck controlling that computer, and they're both working quite happily. And what you can do then to transition right over, once this guy's finished his record, I'm now fully playing on here. All I do, switch over there, and I now can load this one over here. I'm going to control deck 1. I'm just going to load up there. Put that one into relative mode as well. And there you go. So I've now fully switched over to computer B. DJ number 1 can take his computer, just take it away. You know, that's pretty awesome. That just makes for such a smooth changeover, especially if you've only got fairly limited equipment or whatever. You know, you have only got 2 decks or whatever. If you've got 4 decks, it's a bit easier to manage. Or if somebody's on CDJs and somebody's on turntables, you're doing that transition, it's kind of easy to do. But boy, if you've got 1 set of decks, 1 mixer, especially, oh, it's just a hassle. So this is really, really easy to do, really straightforward. I'm so pleased with how that works. It's pretty amazing. So, however, my white MacBook is kind of struggling a little bit, so I'm just going to send that back over to number 1, because to be honest, that is having a job coping. There we go. So now I've got this deck over here is now controlling computer A, so I can just stop this one, and this computer is now completely out of the loop, and I can even just disconnect it, and we're not going to notice any difference to our performance. It's all just going to carry on absolutely fine. So there you go, that's the switching with the 2 USBs. Fantastic. Right, next thing to look at, and this is complicated as well, I'm going to take a look at the effects, so let's get into that now. Okay, so let's get into the comprehensive and kind of complex effects setup on this mixer. So there's quite a lot to think about with this, but once you get your head around it, you'll be fine. Okay, so what we've got is basically 4 different types of effects here to play with. We have the internal effects, which are built into the mixer. That's the one that you can see there. You've got the external insert, which is your send and return jacks on the rear. You can send out to a Chaos pad, EFX 1000, RMX 1000, whatever you're going to run. And you've also got A and B inserts as well. Plus you've got the DJ effects built into the software. So we'll start with the DJ effects, okay, just to show you quickly. I'm going to open up the effects panel, and to work with those, what you would do, you can either use an external controller, or you could actually do shift, and as I said earlier, you can turn these mic settings into all these bits and bobs here into controls for your internal Serato DJ isotope effects. So that's pretty cool from that point of view, and I'm not going to go over those. I've done enough videos about those in the past. So the internal effects then on the mixer itself. So I'm going to send this channel over. I'm going to start this track off. We'll just get a loop running. There we go, 8-beat loop. As always, the music in my videos is provided by Warped Bridge Records from Newcastle. Thank you to them for their support always. Now, first one then we've got is the filter. And now what we need to do is get obviously a BPM into this. So you can tap the BPM quite happily, or what you can do is if you hold down the tap button and then push this joystick up and down, you can select what your source is for the BPM. So when it's got the little star there, that's a tap. When it's on B, that is a MIDI clock signal coming from USB B in that case, so I could be sending a MIDI clock signal from Ableton or something like that, and it will sync to that quite happily. Also A, so USB A, if I'm running out of that computer, some different software, then I can send a clock from there. And then we get into the S, and that's flashing because you've got a single deck activated. That BPM now is totally linked to the software itself, so I can just go through the BPM up and down. That will change the value on the display because that is following the beat grid from Serato DJ. That was something I really liked on the Pioneer 900 SRT, and I really like it here. It's fantastic. No worries about your BPM whatsoever, as long as it's correct. You can also lock it down as well, so if you basically push down on the joystick, that will lock it at that BPM precisely. And we'll just again go back to the different options that we had. So you can nudge slightly, you can adjust it all manually exactly as you want. You've got the time as well, so you can just adjust that slightly, and you can also hold down shift and change the BPM individually like so. There we go, and that will go through each BPM for you precisely as you want. So all the options there in terms of getting that BPM in there. So important when using BPM synced effects to have the different options available to you and be able to use them right. So let's just roll that loop on a bit later, get out of that white noise. There we go. Okay, so the filter then, first of all, is an auto filter. Change the depth of it there, you change the level, and you can adjust. There's a little shift function on there, a little arrow next to it, so you hold down shift and push filter, and then you can go through the different options with the joystick You can have a low pass, and the high and low for each one is where it starts in the BPM. Is, you know, once you get it, actually use it, you can figure out how that works. But lots of adjustments for that, which is great. Then we've got the flanger, good old flanger. Again, we've got options for that, so we can have negative or positive polarity on your flanger. We've got a phaser. All of these, again, you can just adjust the beat length with that joystick there quite happily. Pretty interesting noises with that one. Good old echo. And these are all post fader, remember, so boom. Sounds really, really good. And you've got adjustments on there as well. You can change the type of echo, so you can have a high pass, which I've got in my case, the standard echo. You can adjust the frequency that high passes by, and you can have a hold echo as well. So plenty of options all within the mixer to play with there. You've got a robot, which you just adjust with the joystick. And a reverb. Again, post fader, and you can adjust the depth of that. Absolutely lovely. So yeah, and then your external insert, then you've got a shift option on that as well, so you can set this to the external insert, and that will then send and return out. Obviously we've lost the signal there because there's nothing hooked up to it right now. You've got a shift option on there, which is the output level, so you can change that on the device itself, or you can change it within the mixer. And you can, with all these extra options, you can of course run these as well. So I can have my external effects unit running, and I could put a flanger to it first in the chain. So loads of flexibility. You can really, you know, mess with your stuff if you want to, which is awesome. A and B insert effects. Now it's going to make for a far too long a video, but I actually tried this with Ableton Live. I had Ableton Live running on the second computer. I was sending MIDI clock, which this thing will always send MIDI clock if you set it in the preferences. I'll get to those, but you can always send MIDI clock out. So I was sending MIDI clock to Ableton, was sending the send and return signal through the USB with no audio signal required, you know, just the USB cable, and then I was picking up the audio, and I could affect that audio in Ableton Live, all beat synced, and I could send it back in the mixer, send and return. It's really clever. It's really cool. There's a good guide to setting that up. It's the same guide for the 68 on Rane's website. There's also a really cool video from Zach S at Rane, and he shows you how to sync up this thing with Native Instruments Machina. He's doing that, I think, on the same computer, and that works a treat as well. So many different options when you've got MIDI clock signal coming in and out. I mean, that's something people have asked for from Serato software for a long time, is to have MIDI clock in and out, and that still doesn't have it. I don't know if it ever will. So to have that option in the mixer itself is really good, and it just worked a treat. As I say, I was pretty astonished how well it worked, sending Ableton, you know, out to Ableton and back in again for effects. It's really cool, really works well. Okay, so just one last thing to look at then before we wrap up the video. We've got the basically non-program MIDI we're going to look at there. That will let you assign any of these controls a MIDI. They send MIDI data out of them, and you can run into, let's say, Ableton Live or whatever on this second computer. You can assign that to USB-B, and then that will let you put those into your software and just use them as MIDI controls. So really flexible from that point of view, and you can switch between A and B, whatever you're using, fully from the mixer itself. We've also got the preferences panel there in the software itself. So we go into system preferences. We've got the 64 there at the bottom, and that will let you choose. You've got, because this is a fully, you know, featured 12 channel sound card, 6 stereo pairs. You can set the recording to go into main mix, mic 1 and 2, so you can record directly in there. You've got stereo and mono output, and you've got your buffer size there as well. And we go into the decks. You can assign the filter resonance individually for each deck, which is kind of cool. These are for recording if you're using it as a sound card. If you're using it as a Serato DJ device, you just want it set to phono CD1, whatever. You don't change those around. And you've got phono sensitivity as well when they're set onto phono inputs too. You can change all the effects settings also from the software rather than having to do it on the screen. and you've got your MIDI, so you can receive MIDI beat clock, you can send MIDI beat clock, and you can have user button lighting. So if you're assigning the external non-program MIDI to something else, you can have lighting on there as well and get that all working. So really, really comprehensive, fully feature-packed. So there we have it, the Rane 64 mixer for Serato DJ. It is a powerhouse of a mixer. So many functions that work superbly with the software. Brilliant 2 sound cards in there. Sound quality is amazing through my studio monitors. It's got everything you could ever want from a mixer, really. I can't think of much else that it could do that it doesn't do right now. It is fantastic. I can see why people fall in love with Rane mixers, and if they do, you know, they're Rane for life. You know, that's how they get down forevermore. It's £2,000. That's a hell of a lot of money for a mixer. Like, that's a lot of money to spend on a mixer. You know, realistically, you can get a decent mixer for well under half that price. Is this worth that extra money? Yeah, if you're going to make use of the features on this, if you want something that's going to last well in a club install or whatever, then this is definitely worth looking at. The Pioneer for me is, you know, if I had £2,000, I wish if I had £2,000 to spend on a mixer, my money would probably go on the Pioneer, simply because, as I said in my Pioneer review or my demo, that, you know, I'm used to Pioneer. I find them in all my venues I play have got Pioneer mixers installed. If I bought this, I'd have to take it with me. I'd have to flight case it up. I'd have to swap the mixer out at pretty much every gig. If I wanted to, you know, get my money's worth out of it, I'd have to take this with me, and you know, that's a bit much, really, for my current situation. If you're a touring DJ or so on, you know, great. Yeah, throw this in a flight case, get your road manager to carry it for you, and you're rocking and rolling. A lot of people do carry the Rane 62 out with them, scratch DJs and so on do that, so there's no harm in that at all. If you're at that sort of level. I'm not at that level. I'm a resident. You know, I turn up, I use mostly the gear that's provided for me. So, yeah, ultimately, I'd have to go Pioneer, but you certainly won't regret buying this thing. Yeah, absolutely superb. So thank you very much for watching. My channel is Mojax VDJ on YouTube. Please do subscribe for more demos and tips and reviews and so on, all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.